Hey guys, I'm making a quick guide here. Before I start this, I'm just gonna say what it's about. Basically, this is a super beginner's guide on how to play a shaman. Now, um, if you already know the pretty much the basics of a shaman, then this is not the video you should be watching. Go watch some like live streams or some PvP videos or something. But this is to explain like just the total basics of playing a shaman. So saying that, let's get into the video. So first we're going to explain what your role is as a Resto Shaman in Arena. So your role is pretty much to have tons of control. If you've played any other class in Arena, you know, well, a caster class, maybe you've played with a healer that complained about it, but Wind Shear is like one of the most annoying spells for anyone, pretty much, if you're playing an arena. So you have Wind Shear and you have Hex. So your main role is basically, as a shaman healer, you could basically turn the tides in a fight with your cooldowns and your Wind Shears and pretty much everything else, grounding totem, you know, all that stuff, purging. But we're gonna go over Wind Shear first. So I'm gonna open up my macros, because what you should do right now is you should have a target focus Wind Shear. Now, Wind Shear can only be casted when you're aiming at the guy. You can't cast Wind Shear when you're behind him. So say if I'm at this guy, I could basically Wind Shear this guy right now, but if your character's facing this way, you can't. So know where your enemies are at all times. Pretty much just have your little health bars up, or just pay attention to where they are, and see what they're casting. If they're casting a huge heal, then you should probably shock it. Now, it really helps with the focus, because you don't have to go and click on the frame and share it. All you have to do is just focus, set your focus, and you could be targeting yourself and you could still focus shear the guy. So it's just an easier way to shear people. But you're gonna want to do this pretty much all the time. Let's see if I can find a mob here. So you could Riptide, and right after your Riptide, you could actually Wind Shear right after, because it doesn't take the global. So whenever you Riptide, you should be looking for a target to Wind Shear. So you could Riptide and shear instantly. That's just a little tip there. So that's it with Wind Shear. Now let's move on to Grounding Totem. So Grounding Totem, pretty basic. It takes a spell from the enemy. So if you time it right, you could screw up an Ellie Chamois with a Lava Burst, or you could screw over UAs from locks, or pretty much anything else that's like crucial to the fight. Just big burst. What you need to do with Grounding Totem, you need to practice, and you need to know when to put it down. You don't want to be randomly putting it down in arena just because the cooldown's up. You want to know that it's the best time to put it down. Now, this isn't to say to wait for a huge cooldown. If your teammates are taking lots of damage and you see people casting, you could put it down, but you know what I mean by that. So another tip with Grounding Totem is sometimes you can anticipate when pallies or DKs grip you. It's harder with the DK grip, actually, I shouldn't say that. But Pally Hodges, you'll see the Paladin run to you, and if you have a Grounding Totem up, you could just put it down, and chances are he's going to hit the Grounding Totem, and he's just screwed out of a 5-second stun. So that's another thing. Now, your other control spell is your Hex. Hold on a second. Alright, I'm back. My friend interrupted me. So, what were we talking about? I think we're just talking about Hex, right? Hex? I don't know. Okay. So, Hexes. Hexes are big parts for kills in your arena matches. So, with the Hex, basically look for an open target that's viable for a Hex. So, say you're looking at your team, they're damaging, like, say you're facing a warrior, DK, holy paladin, and your team is killing the DK. You have two choices here. If your team's taking massive amounts of damage just from, like, both of them hitting you, even if you're on the DK, you can actually Hex the warrior, but if you see that the DK is about to die, it's judgment from you. If you think you could heal your partner up, then by all means go and Hex the healer to have extra CC. But you should really communicate with your partners to see if they could interrupt a heal or something. So instead of hexing the healer, you could probably hex a DPS or something. So that's really it. Whoops, what the hell did I just open? I pressed F10 and I opened up X-Fire. Alright. So that's really all the control spells you have. There's some minor ones. If you're a Tauren, you could have a stun. War Stomp. If you have double melee teams, this is really helpful, by the way, if you're Tauren. If you have double melees on you, and you can't get a heal off, what you should do is, do your War Stomp to both the melee, right? And that gives you time to cast a healing wave. You don't have to fake anything, you don't have to do anything. You could basically cast a healing wave right after you War Stomp. Now, if they trinket the War Stomp, then that's their own fault, and they just basically wasted a trinket, but they probably got the interrupt off on you. Another thing is Earthbind. Earthbind is just an all-around control, just a constant slowing effect that goes on the enemy. So, if you're running away from somebody, obviously you want to put out your Earthbind, but if you see people running around just freely, you might as well don't go out and Rambo in the middle, but if you're in a position, you could put out an Earthbinding totem and slow everybody. It just makes their life as a DPS and a healer horrible. So, what else can we go over? Oh wow. I guess we could go over Stoneclaw. So, Stoneclaw, if you have the glyph for it, it actually... There it is. I thought I didn't have it. That would have sucked. It actually absorbs damage. Which, well, that's a... Okay, I'm just gonna put this down. It's gonna taunt this guy. But, as you can see, I have a rend on me. So, it's just absorbing damage. Now, this is really good. Basically for anything. Obviously, if you're taking damage, you put the Stoneclaw down. Just use it every time it's up. Pretty much. That's really basic. I don't really need to explain that. That's just, you know what to do with that. So, that's enough of control. Let's go to how to heal. Now, many shamans, new shamies, when they're... Fuck, I pressed the X-Fire button again. When they're 85, they get confused on what healing spells to use. Well, now that they actually nerfed Healing Surge, so let's do a little test here. If I do Healing Surge, it only heals for 12k and it costs 6k mana. But if I do a greater healing, which it's actually not that long if you have a Riptide up, so if you do that, you get 26k and it only costs 1k more mana. So, Greater Healing Wave is the heal you're basically going to be using all the time. Now, there's some Shammies I know that use Healing Surge still, and they don't, you know, they don't use Greater Healing. I'm not too sure why they do that, but, that's their own thing, I guess. It's just a faster heal, so if you want to get, like, a faster heal, it's not even that much faster, but, you know, 1.73 and 1.48, so, you know. Now, if your teammates aren't taking tons of damage, you could either spend your time just doing a crappy healing wave, which, I mean, it heals for like what a Riptide does, so if you want to sit there and do that, that's your choice. But instead of doing that in Arena, you could actually go around and you could be dispelling your teammates, you could be grounding stuff, you could be actually purging your enemies to get stuff off, which is really a plus about being a Shammy. I'll get onto that later. But, yeah, so main heal, greater healing. You have to do little heals, don't waste your mana, and just do a healing wave. Basically keep your Riptide up constantly, because these little buffs that you get, it increases your cast time for your greater healing, so you don't really want to cast one of these if you don't have that up. So if you don't have that up, you probably should Healing Surge, but it's going to eat through your mana and it doesn't really heal for that much. So that's pretty much it for healing. You never want to use Healing Rain. I don't really see it being viable in 5s either. It's not that great. I mean, no, just, I wouldn't use it. It's not something you should be casting unless you, like, have a 4 melee team and, like, you know what I mean. But don't do it, because it costs a lot of mana. So, let's go on to what Tremor Totem does now. Before Tremor Totem, long time ago, not that long ago, okay, well, sort of, but, it used to just be, you could cast it and it doesn't have a cooldown. Now this was an issue. It was a buff for you, but, it was actually crappier for you, and, it was actually good and bad for the other team. But if they didn't see it, you could just put it up and basically any team with a fear gets screwed over. But what people did, they just go in, melee your Tremor, and you'd just get feared and you can't do anything about it, so you'd have to trinket. So what Blizzard did is they put a cooldown on Tremor Totem, but now when you get feared, you can just cast Tremor Totem and it gets you out of it. So I'd say that's way better, in my opinion. Now, you're probably wondering when you should use a Tremor Totem. This is basically up to you. If there's a lot of damage going out, and you know you can't get all scattered around and your positioning all screwed up and all your teammates are feared, you probably should Tremor Totem. Now, there's some teams that you should probably you know, save the Tremor for like a burst moment. If you're facing a Warlock and you're trying to get a kill and you don't have your Tremor up, your teammates are probably going to be pissed. So just decide that with your teammates, really. You can pretty much avoid a lot of fears with your grounding and stuff anyways, so it shouldn't be that bad. And all of your teammates really shouldn't be grouped up, so well, I'm getting a little laggy. Okay. That is it for Tremor Totem. Let's talk about cleansing. Cleansing is actually really good. If you're moving around and you don't want to sit and cast a heal, you could actually heal with your dispels, which is a new thing that they put out.